Now you may notice that I have now got rid of the tables for now. With all my other seedlings on, I've still got the other table, and that table will come back into here over this side. But for now, I've moved it all. And the reason is I need to tackle a job in here that I wasn't going to do this year. But I think I'm going to bite the bullet and give it a go. Now this area here is really bad for horsetail. We have it really bad coming in from the next door's plot. It's becoming a bit of an issue, and because that's been abandoned now, it's not regularly trimmed down and looked after. So last year, this whole area down here was absolutely covered in it. Now obviously, as we see it, we do pick it, but it kind of scuppered some of my plans I wanted for this greenhouse. This greenhouse was built in the winter last year, so it's only been up for a couple of months really. But my whole plan was, in this greenhouse, to put in a raised bed down this whole one side. Now the reason why I want to do that is because, well, this is going to be mainly for my chilli plants and some other things that I was going to actually start growing in pots. But when you cover the costs of at least a 10-litre pot, because I find anything smaller than that really doesn't grow a good healthy chilli, and all the compost to fill all those pots, bearing in mind I think we've got over 70 odd chillies, it was going to cost an awful lot of money. Whereas that compost in the pots, yes, it can be reused, you don't get as much back, and obviously the pots are reusable for future years. But in my eyes, it got me thinking, now I'm incredibly tight with money. Money is incredibly tight for us at the moment. So in my eyes, I think long-term saving, by building this bed in here, I can fill it up with materials that I already have, cutting out a massive amount of cost. Now, will it necessarily save us money from the amount of money we would be spending on compost and pots? Probably it will be about the same. But this bed is something that I can top up with our own homemade compost each year. And so I will never have to bring in any other bags of compost. The thing is with pots as well, it can be difficult for me to come down all the time just to make sure it's watered. And in fact, even just the last few days with the heat of the sun, everything needs watering almost daily at the moment. So I want to cut some of the work down. Now some of these chillies are going into the ground in the polytunnel and the other polytunnel too, and I will have a handful in pots as well. But I think I can save money in the long run by building this raised bed. Now obviously when it comes to wood, can be the most expensive thing. But the thing is, in my shed, I have got plenty of offcuts of wood that I can use in this raised bed. Plus, we've managed to find a load more for free. Now, some of this has definitely seen better days, but we've actually put worse in our other polytunnel 3 years ago, and it's been absolutely fine. But with this amount of little scraps of wood and some of the other slightly newer bits that we got for free, we're hoping to build a raised bed that covers all of that one side of that greenhouse. Now when it comes to filling up raised beds, that's where the cost is in general. We're lucky we've got all the wood for free. The screws we've already got, so that has cost us nothing at all. But one of the things that obviously you do normally have to spend, and which is the most expensive, is compost. Now we have this compost bay here, and as you can see, it's got a lot of straw in. Now this is just chicken bedding. This is all this is. So this is absolutely full of chicken poop and straw. Now this is probably about 6 months old or more, so it should be absolutely fine to mix into this bed. But this will be one of the layers to that raised bed. Now obviously that's not enough there to fill the whole of this raised bed. It's going to be about 40 centimetres tall, give or take. So one of the other things that I have actually got is some other bays of compost. And it's these compost bays up here. Now these are compost bays that were started later on in the year, and as you can see, again, it's not fully rotted in any way, shape or form. It's mostly grass, this pile. We had a delivery of a massive amount of grass and we had nothing else to add to it, so we just left it in here to actually just rot down. Now the middle of it isn't too bad and it is still rotting down, but I can use this as layers in that raised bed. Now I have 2 bays of that kind of material, and it is a shame that it's not ready to actually as a good compost, but I can still use it to fill the majority of these beds. Now this is some of the other wood that we've got, and we've got another small pile of it elsewhere. Now one of the other things I've got to fill this raised bed is these. This is old leaves that we collected last year. Now I'm happy to use this. This adds amazing organic mulch into that compost area. Now I've got several bags of these to add in to those raised beds. Now technically, in the grand scheme of things, these leaves don't take up a massive amount of room because one, they will rot down. And all this organic matter that I am adding to these raised beds, come next year I will have to add a load more. But by then my other compost will be definitely ready and they can have a really good top up of homemade compost. Now obviously I will have to top up with normal shop bought compost as well. I haven't got anything of a half decent quality to actually plant these chilli plants in. But all these organic layers that I'm going to be adding into this bed will give these plants such a great feed throughout the following year. So enough of the talking, let me just get on and get these beds built. After scraping back the wood chip, we have a ton of horsetail. Now we knew we weren't going to eradicate it in 1 year, but there's an awful lot, and it was one of the main reasons I did not want to put beds in here and deal with it. But this is going to be years worth of work. Now I'm not going to be using chemicals because it's not something I want. Up to you though. I have heard that there is certain weed killers that work quite well on this, but I'm going to hand trowel out as much as I can and then cover it with a real thick layer of cardboard, which hopefully should weaken it for this year. This is something a lot of allotmenteers have to deal with. It's quite rampant on a lot of sites. It's not the end of the world, but it certainly isn't the best either. Now, I'm under no illusion that this cardboard is going to stop horsetail. It is not, but it may slow it down a little bit. Now I could leave this whole area and not grow anything, but I actually don't want to do that. I want to make the most of it. Horsetail is a giant pain in the backside and it really does spread, but when I can catch my breath. But it isn't detrimental to your plants necessarily. The roots go so far down, you are never going to dig all those roots out. So whenever you see it, keep picking it, take as much of the root as what you can see. Eventually it will weaken and you may even eradicate it. For us, we're not going to be able to eradicate this because it's coming in from next door's plot, which isn't being used. Right, let's get these raised beds done. So these are them finished, and as you can see they're two different types of wood. The one at the end is really old scrappy wood, and it really is a mismatch. That's why it looks a little bit off, and it's not on particularly overly level ground. Eventually it will sink down and it will be a bit flatter. I'm not concerned about that. It will hold the compost as I want. This one here looks a little bit better because it was a newer wood, and it went together much better because it wasn't warped and twisted and everything else. So far I'm quite happy with how these beds are. Now, are they perfect? Are they looking fantastic and beautiful? And no, not in the slightest, but they will do their job. I'm not after perfection. I'm just after cheap ways of gardening. Now, I'm going to put some black liner on the inside of these beds. It's builder's plastic, the really strong, heavy duty stuff. I want to protect the wood for as long as possible, and I'm not painting this wood, and even though it is, both of them have been heat treated for outdoor use, being next to damp compost all the time is going to make them rot even quicker. So I'm just going to quickly line the insides of these bays before I add this compost. So that's them lined. It's not pretty, obviously you won't see most of it. And when I bring my knife down, I'll actually be able to cut it a little bit tidier. Next, compost. Now, because I'm a cheapskate, one of the first layers I'm going to add into here is these collected leaves that we've had since winter, and these are going to be my base layer. Now, I don't want it overly deep, but at the same time, because of the type of organic matter that I'm adding to this bed that's going to rot down over time, it really will sink and become much lower. By the time it does most of its sinking though, I should have more homemade compost to add to this pile. Now, these are a mixture of oak leaves and those kind of things, so they do rot down a little bit quicker. I will have to be careful in these beds of rogue sycamore seedlings, things like that, but it's not something that just can't be pricked out or picked out as and when they grow. Now the next layer I'm going to do is some of our very immature compost that we started making last year. It was mainly just green grass with a little bit of browns. Last year we really struggled for our grass collection because it was so wet. We weren't getting as much green grass, and then when we did, we had tons of it. Unfortunately, by then we didn't have as much browns to mix in the 6 or 7 builder's bags of grass we were getting at a time. So in the end, we just piled it up into the top compost bags, hoping for the best. But that is coming into here in a semi-thickish layer to add on top of these leaves. Now my next lot is this. This is that grass, or semi-composted. And I'm going to add in multiple buckets of this. So this is me the very next day. I ran out of time to finish this project. I was hoping to get it done in one day. But this morning I've managed to carry on filling up the amount of grass that I wanted in here, the grass compost, and I flattened it down quite a lot. You've got to remember, if you're filling up your raised beds naturally with organic matter, this is going to really drop over time. So even though this grass compost is not clumped and it's not overly wet, it's actually quite aerated. And in fact, before I put the next layer on, I may actually water this layer just to make sure that it can carry on rotting down. Now this stuff is the chicken bedding manure pile. Like I said, it's not a true compost, it is just a pile of chicken poop, straw, bedding from their coop and their floor in one tasty pile. But it is really rich and it is absolutely full of worms. So this is my next layer. Now there is still a lot of straw material and things like that that have not broken down as yet. And you can see in certain areas I've got little pockets of sawdust too. Now this is not my ideal mix because I am worried a little bit of nitrogen stealing from some of this manure, because I've got so much brown material still left to basically rot down. But for this year, if I need to, I will additionally feed these beds. Now this is still quite sticky, as in a few sticks in here that was on the coop floor. But it will eventually break down. But in the meantime, it may add a little bit of aeration to stop compaction in this bed. Now that looks quite a lot in there, but by the time I stand on it, it's going to go down a bit more. So the most I can get it down, the better. But it does mean I can get a bit more of my homemade stuff into this bed before I have to spend any money on bags of compost. Now that's as much of my own... Woo! Nearly. Now that is as much of my own compost, shall we say, that I actually got available. Now I have got a ton more grass which I could add in if I really wanted to, but I want to leave at least 15 to 20 centimetres for some half decent compost. I've just had a pigeon. So for this year, and this year only, I will have to use bagged compost, which is something in general I really don't like doing. When we first started our no-dig journey, we did use bagged compost because it was our first year on the plot and we didn't have our own homemade compost. But by the second year we were able to start making our own no-dig beds, and gradually each year we're able to add and amend extra beds as we go along, cutting out the massive costs of compost. Now the only time I buy compost now is for my seedlings, and this stuff is pretty pants. The first 3 bags that we bought was okay, and it was lovely fine stuff that the seeds seemed to do okay. Went back for multiple bags more and it's pretty pants, but it will be absolutely fine for a bed. Now I'm not endorsing this product and I'm also not dissing this product. For us it's the cheapest option. It is 3 for 15 at your local B&M. But for the bed here, this will be perfect. It's a cheaper option and it will cost a hell of a lot less to fill up these beds. Now it is going to take around about 12 bags for this area, well, for each individual bed. So that's £60, but it will be a bed that hopefully I can enjoy for a long time to come. Now this stuff is actually one of the first bags that we had. That is actually not too bad for sowing. So that is just the one bag. Now obviously I'm trying to go as deep as possible. So it's going to take multiple bags just to fill this whole area. Now obviously that was just 3 bags and it's actually filled quite a lot, so in fact I might actually be able to save even more money than I was hoping to. When I used an online compost calculator, it worked it out about 12 bags for the whole area, I think it was, give or take. I reckon I could probably do these for under 10 bags. Maybe even 8 at a push. I think 2 more bags in the bigger bed, which you've just seen me do. 1 for the end, and I want another one to go across the top just to take it almost to the edge of the bed. I want to add in as much as possible. And then because this bed's even smaller than that bed, I think this one will probably be about 4 bags in total. So I think about 8 or 9 bags I can get this on. So off the top of my head, I think I can do this for about £45, which is a great bargain. Now if I was to do all my chilies in pots, and to buy the pots, and to obviously buy all the compost for all my chilli pots, I would have to spend about £60 to £80 just to do that. With these beds, I can reuse this whole bed time and time again, and any future compost will come from our own compost bins. Whereas if I use the pots, I would get less back after the end of the season when reusing it, and it's the additional cost of all those pots in the first place, where these raised beds have cost me nothing to build, and it's just the compost. So all I've got to do now is go and buy some more compost, get that in, and hopefully these beds will be ready to plant up my chilies later on in the month. My chilies will probably come down here at the very beginning of May, and I can get some of them in these beds. Now I reckon I could probably, depending on the variety, get up to about 30 in this bed. And then obviously throughout the winter months I can use these beds to grow other things as well. So it's kind of a win-win. Because if I'm going to spend any money on this allotment, I want to get the very most of it as I possibly can. So if you've made any raised beds in the past, let me know in the comments how you did it. Did you go for a really quite a tall raised bed, and what did you fill it with? So let me know in the comments any ideas or inspirations you have by building and making a raised bed.